sounds of violence, whatever that may be. We can hear it and we can go right there.
It's essentially what I tell teachers when I teach this is you are buying us time to get there. The cavalry is coming, and you are buying us time by locking down and hiding in that room and being quiet. It buys us time to get there.
Yep, and I know everybody on this panel would agree with me, but you know, we all grew up, or I did, you know, where the state mandates that you do a fire drill once a month, and we can get slapped pretty good if we don't do that. They don't mandate that we do any drills. Seems, I'm sure everybody on this panel would agree that that might be backwards. I think the last student fatality we had because of fire was in 1952. But that doesn't, just because we're not mandated to, we do them monthly, we do a couple of each drill, and we've tried to mix them up a little bit to make them a little more relative. As an example, Lewis Palmer last year, we brought in we've done these fire drills, and we've tried to turn those into evacuation drills too, but we brought in a smoke machine and fired it up and just we didn't want robots walking out of the building to where they're supposed to go during a fire drill. We cranked up the smoke machine and kind of watched how they reacted to it, and we learned some lessons every time we do a drill. And so those are some of the things where we're trying to get the most bang for our buck, so to speak, when we're doing those drills. Not going to get into a whole lot of evacuate. We'll periodically, one of the things I always talk to teachers about is, you know, having a concept of where north, south, east, and west is in your building, because, you know, we might evacuate you out the east, or just because during the fire drill you always go to the football field. Well, the problem may be between you and the football field. So where are you going to go if you have to go out the other side of the building? Or if you're in elementary, where are you going to go if you don't go to the track? So evacuate is something that we mix into a lot of our fire drills, and we try to tweak them, and again put us in better situations for in the event that we ever did have to evacuate, that we would have that we would feel comfortable going in different directions than having a fire drill where we go to the same place every time. Anything to add on evacuate? We have them all line up. They go down, you know, they have different ones. You know, some I know I was just up at Prairie Winds, and they do a real good job and get out there, and they're all in their class and they're taking attendance. And within minutes, you know, we know, well, we're missing this student or we're missing that student, or we have everybody. And those are good things for us to practice too, because you can only imagine in the event of an incident, it's going to be pretty imperative that we know who's with us and who's not. As soon as possible, so practicing those things helps. Shelter in place is kind of an old terminology, but it's still part of the standard response protocol. And when I do my trainings with staff, I always kind of give this example. When I go to trainings that are hazmat related, they have everybody in their room kind of raise your hand, and they say, okay, you don't have to pay a whole lot of attention for the rest of this if any of these things happen. So I put my hand up, and they'll say, okay, if you don't have railroad tracks running through your district, you can put your hand down. We have that. If you don't have an interstate that goes near your district, you can put your hand down. We have that. If you're not near a major military institution, you can put your hand down. So statistically, obviously, we're more susceptible than some for some kind of a hazmat spill or some kind of a chemical issue. For those of you that lived in the area, it's probably been years ago now, probably 8 or 9, but I remember the train. I remember the morning I used to live near the train tracks down the road here, and the train was leaking something, and they all went into a shelter because of the chemical. And the one thing I always remember from that training is I didn't pay a whole lot of attention, but you know when you see the semis going by and they have all those decals on the side of the truck that tell you what chemicals are in that building or in that truck in case they have an accident? One of the things I always found interesting, and I think about it almost daily, is they always told me, you know what the most concerning truck on the interstate is to hazmat people. And nobody would know, and they would always say Walmart trucks, because you'll never see a placard on a Walmart truck of what chemicals they're carrying, because they carry just enough, just below the required amount to have a placard. So nobody really knows what would happen if all of them got mixed up in an accident. So now I've cursed you all to be scared of Walmart trucks. Todd, some thoughts about elementary parents in the audience, some things that you've observed that you would share with them?
So are there any elementary teachers here, students? Okay, good. Parents. Okay. So one of the things I've seen over the last few years is, and you probably have too, is pickup and drop-off times can be hectic, especially at the beginning of the year. By now, we're probably should be in a groove of pickup and drop-off. But it can still get hectic. People lose their patience because they got to be somewhere. Our principals and their staff work very hard at trying to get a routine going to where it's smooth. Some of the biggest hiccups are parents that decide for some reason today or this week or normally they're not going to follow the rules or the tradition of what the principal set up. Please be patient. That's huge. Once you have that patience going, it actually runs pretty smooth. The other thing I'd like to talk about is please obey the traffic laws, because when you don't, people usually get hurt or you can get in a lot of trouble. It's not worth it. It's an extra 5-10 minutes at the beginning or end of the day, but everybody's going through the same thing. So please be patient and please obey those traffic laws. Some of the things we've had over the last few years that I've seen are situational awareness with students. I'm very surprised at how students pick up stuff and see stuff and will tell their parents, and then parents will call us. Hey, there was a car with somebody watching us at the bus stop or in the school parking lot before everybody starts getting there. Students will come to parents or to faculty the next day and tell us, and we want that information. So when your students tell you this stuff, please don't ignore it. Please let us know. We want to look into that. Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's something, but we need to look into that. The other social media thing I'd like to talk to you about is, I don't see it as much in the elementary school as I do at the middle or the high school, but the older students at the elementary schools, I do see this, is they're so focused on this that they don't know what's going on around them. I've watched them walk down the hall and run into stuff, or one of the things I haven't seen yet, but I don't want to see is there a threat to them and they're not paying attention, and that threat can get more serious because they're so focused on this. Please educate your child on situational awareness and keeping an eye out for what can go wrong with strangers. I'm sure high school will have more on that in a minute here when it's his turn. As the school resource officer here before I retired, I am not exaggerating when I say 98% of the cases that I dealt with were because of this. And I've had parents tell me, well, I'm not going to punish my child by taking this away from them. But they asked me how to handle the situation, and I said, get rid of this. They wouldn't do it. This is most of what we deal with. Finally, I'd like to talk about age of culpability in the state of Colorado is 10 years old. So if your child is 10 years old or older, they can be charged with a crime. I do want to reiterate what Deputy Atkinson said is, we are not looking to charge kids. There are a few laws in the state of Colorado that don't leave them any choice. They must charge. But for the most part, just because the age of culpability is 10 years old doesn't mean we're going to be charging kids. We don't want your child to have a criminal record. So we're going to try and figure out ways to help without charging. But again, some laws don't leave them any choice. So one of the things that I've said to parents before is, just because your student is under the age of 10 doesn't mean that you probably won't appear in front of a judge to answer for your student's issues. So it's important that your student know what that is and what can happen if they are 10 or older. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so. I had a
No.
thought, but if it comes back to me, I'll chime in.
John, go down and some tips for,
Yeah, and Todd was talking about some things at the elementary schools, but they kind of bleed over into the high schools as well. On the minor level, we see a lot of freshman and sophomore parents that want to come into the school 2 minutes before their child needs to be at the dentist appointment, and they feel that they have to come in to check the kid out. As they get into the secondary level, the high school level, you can call attendance in the morning and say, I need my child to be released at this time. You don't even need to get out of your car. The child gets a green slip. At that time, comes down, hands us the green slip. They scan out with us, and they go straight to the waiting car. That's the biggest frustration we see with parents on a daily basis is we're going to be late for our appointment. And they didn't even realize that they could call the child out the day before. They could call the child out a week before with attendance. So minor stuff, going into the parking lot, the pickup and drop off, not seeing the parents at high school so much violating the rules of the road than we see the high schoolers. If you could just reiterate to your students that they should be obeying all those laws as they're getting to school and all the laws on the parking pass that they signed and the parents signed, it would help tremendously. We average 1, maybe 2 traffic accidents a week in the parking lot. Minor fender benders. Haven't had one where anybody's been hurt, but silly things that could be avoided. Unsafe backing is the biggest thing that we see. There's some speed violations, but not too much.
kids riding, if you're reminded the drivers that, kids hanging out on your tailgate or in the back of your truck going around the school isn't a good idea.
Donuts in the parking lot before all the other students get there, another big problem that we have. So just having a conversation with your kiddos when they get their driver's license. Touching on what Todd talked about with the phone and social media. I'm not telling you how to parent. I would never do that. But pay attention to these social media sites that your kids are on. We had an incident at Lewis Palmer High School last week with a student, and it had hit social media before the bell even rang, and hit social media all over the place. These kids have their phones. I mean, Dennis talked about, the lockdown, lock lights and out of sight. It used to be lock lights out of sight and kill your cell phone. Well, 3-4 years ago, the sheriff's office finally got some technology where you can now text 911. We don't tell the kiddos to silence your phone in a lockdown, because if they can text and say, I hear gunfire and I'm in the science room, it helps law enforcement as they're responding narrow down where that threat is. So we encourage the cell phones to an extent. But the social media and monitoring your child's social media accounts is absolutely huge. And the see something, say something. Your kids are going to come home and they're going to tell you, Susie did this, Johnny did this. And if it makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up or makes you cock your head a little bit and go, that's not right, say something. Call security. You don't have to call the principal. So call security, call the dean of students, call an assistant principal, and let them know, because it's our job to look into it and determine it's minor or it's nothing before it gets to be something big. And the last thing I kind of want to touch on, and doesn't really affect the elementary level, but really affects the high schoolers, is now they're starting to date. And when you talk about, if you're 9, you're fine. If you're 10, you're mine as an officer. we now start getting into some of those dating laws. And when they become exclusive in a dating relationship and that goes south, which it always does, and now Johnny throws an egg at Susie's car because she broke up with him. Now we start crossing lines of this was a dating situation, but by law, a crime occurred and it's a domestic violence enhancer. Their hands are tied as law enforcement officers. Those are mandatory arrests, and that will get them decertified as a police officer if they do not arrest. So long are the days of when you break up with someone and you put shaving cream on their back window or, those things now become laws that are criminally broken, and sometimes will handcuff these officers and they'll have to make an arrest. So just being very careful who your son or daughter and how that relationship is going, and if it ends, it's over with, it's done, let's leave it at that, because now we start to cross that fine line where it's no longer a don't do it again, it's a mandatory arrest. So
Yeah, domestic violence laws are really very strict in Colorado, and rightfully so for the most part. So that's great advice if your teenagers are dating, of making sure they're okay if a relationship ends, that they're not going on social media. And I just want to do a quick poll because Todd got me thinking. Todd said 98% of his. When I was an SRO and now, I would say 92% of my cases are social media related. Corey?
I would say about 90%.
Chad?
They do take up quite a bit. But just like another tip for those two and the safety of it, if you guys, your kids do have these applications in their smartphones, or if they have a Wi-Fi capable tablet or Wi-Fi capable old cell phone where they can build these accounts and check in with the phones, even when they get more permissions and responsibilities and they do get those cell phones, and those become a consequence that you can take away from them, or a privilege that you take away from them. A lot of these kids are carrying what we're calling burner phones, so they'll have a backup phone that's there for the Wi-Fi, so they're still getting all the access to all their friends that you think you took away, but they still have it all. And even if they don't have the burner phone, the next day they go to school, there's tons of phones there that they can log into their accounts, so they're still up on their social media stuff, they're still involved with it. So don't close out the applications if you take possession of their phone, and have it, if it's like an auto login, so you can click Snapchat and you can be in some of their conversations and like, oh, he's posting that right now? I should probably call a school resource officer. This is pretty serious stuff. Or, it might be threats towards himself. It might be whatever. But we can look at those situations. So do see that from time to time. Another thing for some cybersecurity stuff would be these kiddos friending people that they have never met. You get points now for like gold stars or something on Snapchat. For every ad that you get some credit. But when you add these people, some of these guys are predators overseas that we can't even track down or can't even get at because we just don't have jurisdiction. But some of them are enticing some of these kiddos to potentially share private images and some of those things. So, monitoring those accounts for legitimate friends that they know personally, face-to-face and have met face-to-face, that would be a huge thing, especially if you're getting into the middle school and high school years. So that's dealt with that quite a bit.
And
John, what percentage?
Some of the, I would say at least 90-95% that were all social media related.
So if I would have a tip to parents, if I had a high schooler, if I don't know much about phones, I would learn more.
And your high school students that get on some of these applications, Snapchat, that picture only goes up for 3 seconds and then it disappears forever. No, it doesn't. All it takes is a written warrant from one of these officers right here, and they can get every single picture that disappeared forever. So just being careful what your kids post on social media is huge.
Kids are smart. It's amazing the stuff they come up with to hide what they're doing on their phones. I had one kid one day who was showing me all these apps he was using to hide stuff from his parents. One was a calculator app. It looks like a calculator, You have to do like a math equation. If you do it, it opens up folders to pictures. There's various apps that will come out that hide stuff from their parents. So just because you take a quick glimpse at the phone doesn't mean that there's not something hidden on there. And truthfully, I'm not smart enough to always figure out where that might be. But just talk to your kids. Be in their business is biggest recommendation.
Good advice, and that's going to lead to our next parent one. Just a quick thing about Safe to Tell. Safe to Tell is our reporting system here in the state of Colorado. Just so you know how it works, you can text it, you can call a number, you can go on their app, and kind of how it works. I encourage kids to tell an adult in their building first, if that's possible, so that the adult can ask follow-up questions so that we can assist them. A lot of our Safe to Tells, a high percentage of them are usually mental health related these days, where a friend's concerned about another friend. But when somebody makes the tip, it goes into the sheriff's office. It's then distributed to myself and the sheriff's office and the school administration. And we're, depending on the severity of the tip, we're sending people to go check on that student. And a lot of times it happens within an hour. So it's a great system. It works, but like I said, I would hope that the kids have a trusted adult that they could tell and not have to share that anonymously. The other thing that's just so parents know that has been changed this summer is there was legislature that, I'll say the statement and it's true, that Safe to Tell is 100% anonymous. That still remains true. But there was legislation that added this. Safe to Tell is 100% anonymous unless you're using it to bully or harass others. So if people are using Safe to Tell to bully or harass others, they can be found, it can be determined who's making those tips. Just wanted to say some of the things. These are all trainings that we do with each one of the schools. And you can kind of look at those from, SRP, radio, when in doubt. Talk to them about Safe to Tell. We talked to them about the Claire Davis Act. Talking to them about reunification, which, for a quick example, we've never had to do a full evacuation in a reunification in the District 38, but we do train for it, and we do have procedures to where, like, if an incident happened, for example, at Palmer Ridge, where we would take all the kids to Lewis Palmer or another site, and kind of how that would look. That's what a reunification is. We talked to them about our threat and risk assessments. Child custody and restraining orders tend to bobble up from time to time. And their situational awareness. So everybody in the district goes through these trainings. Speaking of, you heard a lot about online safety tonight. On December 5th, we're going to do our next Parent Academy night, and that's going to be, I believe, somebody from the DA's office, correct? And we'll have some law enforcement and DA's office, and kind of get a little deeper into what each one of us kind of talked about, where you can ask specific questions about, iPhone and Android, and break it down and what the laws are. And so that'll be on December 5th here at 6 o'clock. We're going to do another one on drugs and addiction in February. And then in April, we're going to do another one of these on mental health. So these are all upcoming trainings that we'll be doing to try to keep our parents up to date, because just as you've heard from everybody up here, and you would hear from any of our administrators, it changes fast. New apps come up every day, new anonymous sites come up every day. So we want to help you guys to do that. This was for the online to ask questions. We can go. I want to be respectful of your time. We were worried that we were going to run out of things to talk about at 6:15, but I've already kept you over, and we really tried to rush the end of it. There's a lot to this. Know that anybody on this panel, if you take the first letter of their name and their last name at lewispalmer.org, you can reach out to us and either meet with us and talk to us, or shoot us an email, and we can set that up in the future. Closing thoughts, Corey?
No, I just want to thank you guys for showing up. I think it's huge that you guys are taking this interest to try to just learn, and we can get feedback from you guys as well. So thanks for coming.
Todd?
What Corey, I just piggyback on what Corey said. So we're here because we care. If we didn't care, we wouldn't be here, just like you all online and here. So appreciate your time very much.
Chad?
Yeah, feedback's a big one. I love feedback for just growth, personal growth, and just seeing if what we're doing is what you guys like to see, or if there's something that I can change a little bit. I'm always down to put that in my toolbox and throw it into something that I can do better. So feedback I'll take.
John?
We do these to keep you informed. This school district is not like other school districts. There are 99% of these kids that are good kids. And that 1% just do silly high school things that we probably did in high school. The reason why these kids are as good as they are is because they're getting it from home. You guys are teaching them right and wrong, and all we are is just reiterating that and keeping them safe at school. So your attendance here and online speaks volumes. So thank you for taking the time to come out.
So this was our first one. They put us. We didn't burn the place down. We got through our first Parent Academy. So thanks to everybody that's here tonight. We'll stick around. Feel free to come up and ask any questions. And I know feedback would be great for all of us as we move forward. If there's something that we could do better. Yes, sir.
Just for everybody, can you announce where the best place to get like your information, like numbers and emails, like if you see something, say something, where you're supposed to get the number, that's called?
Yeah, you can. That's a good question. We'll push that out, but for any of the schools numbers, you can call it the main office and ask for any of us. You can ask for the SRO if you can't remember Chad Weed or Corey Atkinson, or if you ask for the security, it'll come to John Hudson or to Todd or myself. But any of the main numbers at school will immediately can transfer it right over to us. So if it's something immediate, do it that way. Or the campus supervisor line at Lewis Palmer, do you know it offhand?
I don't have it memorized.
No, Todd, we don't have them. They call them, but I promise that the main numbers at each one of the schools can instantly get a hold of them. Or you can always call the non-emergency line of the El Paso County Sheriff's Office to get in touch with the two law enforcement guys, and that number is 719-390-5555. So if you don't think it's to the level of a 911, and if you do think that, then that's the number I would ask you to call, as opposed to calling any of us. If it's an immediate thing, you can do 911. If it's a non-emergency thing, you can always, during the day and you can't get a hold of somebody at the school, you can always dial the non-emergency number 390-5555 and just tell them to send the message to the SROs for the Lewis Palmer School District. But I'll make sure that we get that information up on the site and add that if it's not there. Thank you. All right, thank you all. Have a great evening.